People don't just vanish, at least that's what we like to believe. But every so often, someone walks out the door, makes a routine stop, or heads off on an ordinary day, and is never seen again. No warning, no clues, just an eerie silence where life used to be. These disappearances don't just leave families broken, they leave questions that will never be answered. From a pilot who disappeared mid-flight to a young boy who stepped outside and was never seen again, these 15 stories will leave you unsettled, questioning how someone can simply cease to exist. Number 15, Ryan Chambers. In 2005, 21-year-old Ryan Chambers set off for India, seeking spiritual enlightenment. But somewhere along the way, his journey took a dark and irreversible turn. Traveling with his friend John Booker, Ryan initially embraced the chaos of ashram life. But as the days passed, something shifted. He became restless, sleep-deprived, and withdrawn. Then, on August 24th, he walked out of his ashram barefoot, wearing only shorts, leaving behind all his belongings and a cryptic note. "If I'm gone, don't worry. I'm not dead. I'm freeing minds. But first, I have to free my own." That was the last time anyone saw him. Search teams combed the area, but Ryan had vanished without a trace. Some believe he succumbed to the wilderness, while others suspect he chose to disappear. Nearly 20 years later, his family still waits for an answer, left wondering if his quest for enlightenment led him too far, or if he found exactly what he was seeking. Number 14. Harold Holt. Harold Holt wasn't just any man, he was Australia's PM. Then, in December 1967, he went for a swim and was never seen again. It sounds unbelievable. A sitting head of state just vanishes into the ocean? But that's exactly what happened. Holt, an experienced swimmer, ignored warnings about the rough waters at Cheviot Beach and dove in. His friends watched in horror as the waves swallowed him whole. The huge search operation that followed was unprecedented. Navy divers, helicopters, everyday citizens, all scouring the coastline for any trace of him. Nothing. His body was never found. Officially, he drowned. Unofficially, theories exploded. Some say he faked his death. Others claim he was a Chinese spy who defected via submarine. Even aliens got thrown into the mix. The truth is probably simple: a reckless decision met with tragic consequences. But when a prime minister disappears without a trace, conspiracy theories will always outlive the facts. Number 13. Ilenia Carisi. Ilenia Carisi had the kind of life that seemed untouchable. The daughter of Italian music legends Albano Carisi and Romina Power, she had wealth, fame, and opportunity. But Ilenia wasn't interested in a glamorous, predictable life. She wanted adventure. In the early 90s, she left behind her studies at King's College London and set off to explore the Americas. Her journey ended in New Orleans, where her story turned dark. On January 18, 1994, she vanished. She'd been staying in the French Quarter with a street musician, Alexander Masakila, a man with a disturbing reputation. When she stopped contacting her family, panic set in. A security guard later reported seeing a woman matching Ilenia's description jump into the Mississippi River. But was it really her? No body was ever found. Masakela was questioned, but never charged. Ilenia was officially declared dead in 2014, but the truth is still unknown. Number 12. Lord Lucan. Lucan wasn't just any missing person. He was a walking headline before he even disappeared. A British aristocrat, a gambler, and a man drowning in debts, he became infamous in 1974 when his nanny, Sandra Rivet, was found beaten to death in his home. His estranged wife, Veronica, barely survived a similar attack and later named Lucan as her assailant. Then, he vanished. His blood-stained car was found abandoned, but there was no sign of him. Rumors swirled. Some claimed he fled to Africa, helped by his wealthy friends. Others believed he threw himself into the sea. Over the years, alleged sightings popped up everywhere, from Australia to small English towns, but nothing was ever confirmed. Did Lucan escape justice, or did guilt drive him to an early grave? Decades later, his disappearance remains one of Britain's greatest mysteries, proof that sometimes the rich and powerful don't just get away with crimes, they disappear entirely. Number 11. Margaret Fox. In 1974, 14-year-old Margaret Fox placed an ad offering babysitting services, hoping to earn some extra money. What should have been a simple gig turned into a nightmare. A man calling himself John Marshall arranged to meet her in Mount Holly, New Jersey. He seemed polite and trustworthy, but that was the last anyone ever saw of Margaret. When investigators traced the phone number he used, they found it led to a supermarket payphone. A dead end. Days later, her family received a terrifying ransom call demanding $10,000 for her safe return. But the call, like John Marshall himself, vanished without a trace. No leads, no arrests, just a mystery that never unraveled. Decades later, Margaret Fox remains missing, her case a chilling reminder of how quickly trust can be shattered. Sometimes, the most innocent actions lead to the most devastating disappearances, and the answers remain just out of reach. So, never trust anyone. Number 10. George Mallory and Andrew Irvine. In 1924, British climbers George Mallory and Andrew Irvine set out to make history, conquering Everest before anyone else. The last time they were seen, they were only 800 feet from the summit, pushing against brutal winds and exhaustion. Then, they disappeared. For decades, their fate remained one of mountaineering's greatest mysteries. Had they reached the top? Did they slip, fall, and vanish into the ice? It wasn't until 1999 that Mallory's frozen body was found, still dressed in his climbing gear. A puncture wound on his forehead suggested he had fallen, his ice axe betraying him at the worst possible moment. But Irvine's body and their camera were never recovered. If they reached the summit, history never recorded their victory. Everest, as it always does, kept its secrets. Mallory and Irvine's story isn't just about ambition. It's about the fine line between human achievement and the mountain's indifference to it. Number 9. Rebecca Coriam. Rebecca Coriam had what many would call a dream job, working on the Disney Wonder cruise ship, traveling the world, and living at sea. But in 2011, that dream turned into a nightmare. One moment, she was on board. The next, she was gone. Security footage shows her last known moments, pacing near a phone, visibly upset. Minutes later, she walked off camera. That was it. Disney's official statement? She fell overboard. But her parents weren't buying it. Rebecca wasn't the type to disappear without a trace. There were no witnesses, no alarms, and most suspiciously, no real investigation. The cruise line seemed more interested in controlling the narrative than finding the truth. Was it an accident? Suicide? Something more sinister? The lack of answers only fuels speculation. One thing is certain. Rebecca's case is a chilling reminder that even in the happiest place on Earth, darkness can hide just below the surface. Number 8. Zeb Quinn. Zeb Quinn's disappearance feels like something straight out of a crime novel, except this nightmare was real. It was the year 2000. The 18-year-old had just finished his shift at a Walmart in Asheville, North Carolina, when he planned to meet his friend Robert Owens to look at a car. But something was off. During their drive, Zeb received a page, pulled over, and seemed visibly shaken. Without explanation, he sped off. He was never seen again. 2 days later, Owens called Zeb's workplace, claiming he was sick, on Zeb's behalf. Suspicious? Absolutely. Then, things got weirder. Zeb's car was found abandoned with a bizarre set of clues. A pair of lips drawn in lipstick on the windshield, a live puppy inside, and items that didn't belong to him. Years later, Owens was charged with Zeb's murder, but the case remains murky. Number 7. Weldon Keys. Weldon Keys was the kind of man whose talent left a mark. Poet, novelist, painter, musician. He was a creative powerhouse, but his mind? That was a different story. Beneath the success, Keys was restless, tormented by something even he couldn't put into words. On July 18, 1955, his car was found abandoned near the Golden Gate Bridge, an infamous spot for those looking to disappear forever. The assumption? He jumped. But nothing about Keys was predictable. Friends whispered that he'd talked about vanishing, maybe starting over in Mexico. He'd been acting strange, detached. Did he plan his own escape? Or did the weight of his own mind finally become too much? No body was ever found. No letter, no final act. Just an empty car and endless questions. His poetry still lingers, full of haunting lines about loneliness and loss, as if he always knew he would leave behind a mystery even greater than his words. Number 6. Maura Murray. Some missing person cases haunt you, and Maura Murray's is one of them. In 2004, the 21-year-old nursing student emailed her professors a fake excuse about a family emergency, packed her car, and drove into rural New Hampshire. That night, her car crashed on a snowy road. A passerby stopped, offering help, but Maura refused, saying she had already called for assistance. She hadn't. By the time police arrived, her car was abandoned, her footprints leading nowhere. Inside were alcohol bottles, accident forms, and directions to an unknown location. No trace of Maura was ever found. Did she run away? Did someone pick her up? Was she taken? For nearly 2 decades, her case has remained one of the internet's most discussed mysteries. True crime communities obsess over theories, but no answer has ever surfaced. Maura Murray's disappearance isn't just a case, it's a puzzle with missing pieces no one can seem to find. Number 5. Frederick Valentich. Some disappearances feel like something out of a sci-fi movie, and Frederick Valentich's 1978 case is exactly that. The young Australian pilot was flying over Bass Strait when he radioed in with a chilling report. A mysterious aircraft was following him, not just flying, hovering with strange green lights. Moments later, his voice came over the radio again. "It's not an aircraft." Then a loud metallic scraping sound. And just like that, Valentich was gone. His plane vanished without a trace, and despite extensive searches, no wreckage was ever found. Skeptics argue he got disoriented and crashed, but others, especially UFO enthusiasts, believe his last words hint at something otherworldly. Valentich himself was fascinated by UFOs, fueling speculation that he met a fate far stranger than a simple accident. With zero evidence, his disappearance remains one of aviation's most baffling mysteries, forever suspended between reality and the unknown. Number 4. Lars Mittank. Lars Mittank's disappearance plays out like a psychological thriller with no ending. In 2014, the 28-year-old German was vacationing in Bulgaria's Golden Sands when an ear injury forced him to stay behind while his friends flew home. That's when things got strange. Alone in a cheap hotel, Lars called his mother, whispering in fear. He claimed he was being followed. He didn't say by who, just that he was in danger. Security footage from Varna Airport captured his final known moments. Lars suddenly sprinting through the terminal, vaulting over fences, and vanishing into the nearby woods. He was barefoot, terrified, and running from something or someone. No one has seen him since. Some believe he suffered a sudden psychotic break, possibly due to his injury. Others think he was actually being followed. The internet is flooded with theories, but no real answers. Lars ran into the unknown that day, and whatever he saw, it took him with it. Number 3. Jean Spangler. Jean Spangler had all the makings of a rising star until she walked into the Hollywood night and never returned. In 1949, the 26-year-old actress and dancer left her Los Angeles home, telling her family she was meeting her ex-husband about child support, then heading to a film shoot. But she never made it home. Days later, her purse was found in Griffith Park, its strap torn, as if ripped from her hands. Inside was a chilling note addressed to Kirk, mentioning a Dr. Scott, two names that sent rumors flying. Some say Kirk was Kirk Douglas, the legendary actor, but he denied knowing her. Others believe Dr. Scott was an underground abortionist since Jean had been 2 months pregnant, a dangerous situation in an era when illegal abortions were common. Or was it something darker? The mafia? A jealous lover? Jean Spangler's disappearance became a Hollywood legend, a mystery buried under secrets, scandal, and silence. Whatever happened that night, Tinseltown never told. Well, I just hate Hollywood scandals. Number 2. Bobby Dunbar. In 1912, Bobby Dunbar's disappearance began as a family fishing trip in Louisiana, but it ended in a legal and emotional storm that still stirs debate today. After vanishing near Swayze Lake, authorities found a boy resembling Bobby with a traveling handyman, William Walters. Walters swore the child wasn't Bobby, but Bruce Anderson, a boy in the care of Julia Anderson, who also claimed he was hers. The Dunbars, convinced he was their missing son, took him home. Julia fought for her child, but with no money for legal battles, she lost him to the Dunbars. For decades, that boy lived as Bobby Dunbar, but the truth finally surfaced in the 2000s when a DNA test revealed he wasn't a Dunbar at all. Julia had been right all along. The real Bobby Dunbar was never found. A century later, the case remains an eerie example of how one lost child led to 2 lost families, and justice never came for either. Number 1. Marjorie West. Marjorie West's disappearance is the kind that lingers in the back of your mind, the kind that never feels real until it is. She was just 4 years old, out with her family on a peaceful spring picnic in Pennsylvania, picking flowers like any other child would. And then, in a blink, she was gone. Her sister Dorothea left for only a moment, but when she came back, Marjorie had vanished. Thousands searched the woods. Planes flew overhead. Bloodhounds combed the area. Nothing, not a single trace. Some believed she had wandered off and gotten lost. Others suspected a far darker truth, that someone had taken her. Years later, a man named Harold Beck theorized Marjorie had been kidnapped and raised under a new identity. A woman named Sylvia London reportedly confessed to being Marjorie before her death in 2009, but no proof ever surfaced. To this day, Marjorie West remains missing. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.